And thank you all for coming. And let's see, where do we start? Yes, my name is Fadi Bishara, and I'm very happy to be here in Lithuania. It's the first time. I came earlier, about a week ago, to Estonia to Latitude Conference. And from there I went to Latvia. And so it's a great discovery of the Baltics. I've started Blackbox about 3 years ago, and I've met a lot of great startups in Silicon Valley that have come from this region. And I've always been really impressed with the quality of the talent and the ideas and the creative stuff that you guys are doing. So it's an honor to be with entrepreneurs and great people. So I prepared a very, very, very long talk. I'm going to talk about the 5 pieces of startups that I call the startup anatomy. That they're basically the customer, the product, the team, the business models, and the financials. So each startup has these 5 main components, and I will go over each one of these components. There's a lot to be said about each one of these things. I will focus probably a little more on the team aspect more than others, because that's been my expertise. And for more than 15 years, I worked in Silicon Valley with many, many startups that I've helped build their teams. So that has been the role and way that I've played in this game of entrepreneurships and startups. I'm originally from Syria. I've moved to the US many years ago, so I've lived now in Silicon Valley more than I've lived in Syria. And I've seen this boom and bust cycle a couple of times. And it's definitely another very big boom cycle right now in Silicon Valley and the economy in general in the US. And the innovations and the ideas and the things that's going on, you guys have heard of, and the valuation, the crazy numbers of these companies in the billions of dollars. It's another opportunity to really create global products and build businesses that could go globally. So what I'd like to ask from you is to interrupt me. So I don't like to just talk. And if you don't interrupt me, I have to interrupt myself. And that's a challenge. So anytime, wherever I share, say something that you like, you don't like, you have a question, please raise your hand. And I'd like to make this as interactive as possible than just me talking. You have a deal? Okay, so let's see. So the first piece, like I said, these are like the 5 components. I call them the anatomy of the startup. The first piece is the customer. And there is something about customers and in general and the relationship to startups. And then there's a notion that I always hear investors and CEOs say is we are job creators. So this is what the first thing I start with, I guess, with what do you call it, a little quiz, or true or false. Entrepreneurs are the job creators, or investors are the job creators, or customers are the job creators. Who believes number 1 is correct? Entrepreneurs are job creators, and who says that investors are job creators? About the same. And who agrees with me that customers are the job creators? Great. All right, we're done. So see you guys later. Be right back. Just get some water. Yeah, I truly believe that really the customers are the real true job creators, because if you start a company or you run a business, hiring is really the only time you do hiring is when you have more demands from customers. When there's more things to be done, then you can handle it yourself. So customers are, in essence, really the most important piece of the startup. And that's why I started with the customer as the first piece, because there is a notion sometimes I've experienced and I've heard from entrepreneurs in some European countries more than others. I think you guys got it here. You understand the value of the customers. But like in France or in Germany, I've seen it from entrepreneurs who have the belief that they're the smart ones, and if they build good product, customers are idiots and they must buy the product. So in America, we have this opposite mentality of customers are king, and sometimes it's taken to another extreme. But in startups and in technology, when you're starting a company and building a product, it's extremely important to have a direct loop of communication, getting a feedback loop from the customer to know what you're building is really what the customers want, is the right thing, or you need to build something different. Because most startups start with an idea and a direction, and especially the successful startups, they become successful companies, they end up really building something sometimes quite often is different. And this change is because of the feedback that they get from the customers. It's their impression of solving the problem a certain way. The customers become, the product gets customized based on the feedback and what they hear from what the customers are wanting. So customer is very, very important. They tell you what to build. They pay for the product. They basically are the lifeblood of your company. So what I say is have empathy for the customers. Typically you are your first customer. And the more you understand the customers, the more you understand their needs, definitely the better product you're going to get and the better product you're going to build. So put yourself in that shoe of the customer, and it's very difficult for you as an entrepreneur or founding of a company, because your understanding of the problem is much richer maybe than the other people, that they don't know that the solution that you're creating exists to start with. So you guys have heard of the customer development methodology? Yeah, the lean startup stuff. The lean startup is all about customer development. It's talking to customers and understanding that really what you believe is a problem is what they believe as well. So this is generally, this is my point about the customer. So it's the most important element of the startup. Always understand who are the people that you're trying to serve here, what are the products that you want to create, and put yourself in their shoes and create some great product based on what they're going to tell you to build. So the next piece is the product, and the most important piece of the product here is not to just create a product for the sake of, because it's possible. It could be a really complicated solution. The product always have to solve a problem or cure pain in the way that I phrase it. So the interesting part here is like the more you understand the problem, the better the product that you're going to build. So solutions that they're built by founders who understand the problem themselves tend to be a lot better than not understanding the problem. So for example, Dropbox was a solution for storing online file or storing files online. And Drew Houston was the engineer who was experiencing this problem himself, not finding a good solution to store files online. Again, here there is a point that it's worth mentioning again, is there is a notion that I hear often in also in Eastern Europe, is the idea is the most important thing. And I don't believe the idea is the most important thing. The most important thing is how you execute your idea and how you build the product. So the idea of storing files online was very old. Since the beginning of the internet, we have the X drive and I drive and whatever drive to help people store instead of storing their files on their computer, store them in the cloud. But they never worked. They never worked well. And Dropbox solved that problem because they made these files sync offline and in pieces and created a very sophisticated technology to help them sync and be able to share them immediately when you upload them. And they've grown to more than $10 billion right now, and they're like a 5-year-old company. So the product always needs to solve a problem. The more you understand the problem, the better solution that you're going to have. Twitter, I don't know how many of you know, but Twitter was started by the founder of audio. Was the first product that they started, which was like a podcasting radio kind of, like a blogging audio. And then Apple came out with podcast on iTunes, and that kind of took their chances, and they decided that they have Apple could take that space and take that market. So they started Twitter amongst themselves as an idea to really communicate with the founding teams of how do we keep ideas and how do we share them amongst us in a way that is in a short and succinct, that we could text each other instead of a text. It's like a text gets broadcast. So it started that way, and then they start to like, hey, this is really could grow into its own, and it evolves from there. So it's always interesting to see these examples when a product is built by the founders who are trying to solve their own issues, their own pains. Any questions? No? Not yet. The products only exist when there are customers using it. So this is also a lot of the learning that we have from the lean startups and the customer development is you put the product out and you need customer feedback. So in the past, the methodologies of building products was the engineering team will have the idea what the product is going to look like, and they will work on for months or years, and then sometimes they put the product out and there is no customers. So it really is, it's also a notion that it needs to be reminded. It sounded simple and obvious, but for a lot of engineers, they get wrapped up in creating products that there's usually no customers for except for themselves. So the product has a typical life cycle, and you launch the product, you develop the idea, you launch it, and then you grow it, then you go into it saturates the market, and then products kind of retire, and then in some cases also the product needs to be killed. So don't get too attached to the product and be willing to see this as it's got a life cycle that is going to evolve, and then as all the other technology pieces evolve around it, if it's a technology product, it might have to retire, and then you need to build something on top of it as a next piece of the product or next solution to the problem that you're solving. So this is the customer and the product. No questions. Pretty obvious stuff, simple. Okay. Financials is basically how you're going to finance your company. What are the sources that you're going to get money for your company? And there's a common notion that I also see outside in Europe is the entrepreneur would have an idea and right away start thinking about investors. And that's not necessarily the most optimum way to raise money. It's not the best optimum way to keep control and be in charge of your company, because you end up giving too much equity. This is the highest risk. You're at the idea stage. And unfortunately, there are some investors in here, and quite often those investors really have no clue about technology, but maybe they have money, and they think like, I would invest, and they try to control too much of what you do. So avoid that thinking of the financing product about going to the investors. So the stages that you potentially may be getting the financing from is, quite often is you could maybe bootstrap, maybe you are consulting something on the side, maybe you're generating some small revenue, you find one customer who are willing to pay you something, and generate some revenues. That's an option that most people don't look into, but it's if you look in certain ways that you may find that option that you could bootstrap the business a little bit in the beginning. And the next is you guys have heard of the friends, family, the FFF, the 3 Fs, where you get money to start your business. You have not heard?
I've heard the F word, but
None of them is the right F word here. So it's the typical saying, it's 3 Fs. It's the friends and family and fools who would invest in your company at the early stage. So you go to your family, maybe your rich uncle or your mom or someone who would help invest in your vision, and they will give you money to get things started. But I put 4 Fs here because it's friends, family, and fools, and Fadi. And Fadi. I don't know, I'm trying to be funny here. So these are the stages where the different sources of money you may go to, and I've laid them out in this order specifically. Then after the friends and family, you may go to the business angels. So, and the last people that you want to stay as far and as long as possible and delay getting money from are the venture capitalists. And more often than not, that you would see entrepreneurs, the first thing they do, they build something and they start looking for venture capital money. Venture capitalist money has a different stage. They invest too much money, so they end up maybe needing to take too big of a piece of your company. And they more often than not shouldn't be investing at that stage. So the business angels is typically the source that comes before the venture capitalist. And the business angels are the ones who get you to that next level. So by the time you talk to venture capitalists, you create and build as much value of the company as possible. So when you take money from them, you have created this imaginary value that you are worth X millions or thousands or hundreds of thousands of euros or whatever it is. So postpone getting financing from the VCs as long as possible. Yes?
So what is the difference, the main difference between angels and venture capitalists?
Great question. So the angels is basically are investing their own money. The venture capitalists are investing other people's money. So the venture capitalists, they raise their own fund. They go to limited partners. They go to pension funds and universities and endowments where people they want to diversify their investments. And they take pieces where these big endowment and big insurance companies and other things, they allocate certain money to put it in venture capital. So they raise a fund. So venture capitalists raise a fund that's basically other big, richer people's money. And their job is to return that money with minimum of like three times the amount.
So angels is like venture capital of one person?
Angel is a venture capitalist of one person that is taking his or her own risk, and they are not responsible for other investors. The VCs, they have specific responsibilities to these people who they invest in their money, and they typically have to have a specific strategy of how they're going to invest. They want to invest in e-commerce, or they want to invest in consumer products, or they want to invest in early stage or in late stage. The series A, B, C, D of financing. Some funds don't invest in A round and only invest, they come later. Like Airbnb, Airbnb, right? Just raised $250 million round. So those are late stage investors. They're buying maybe at this stage, maybe another 10–15% of the company for 250 million. And when the company goes public, their hope is they may double that amount.
So we could say that angels are more friendly to you and to your business than venture capital, right?
So the best form of angels are the angels who are basically doing it because, so the angels are almost like an evolution of the friends and family. They're like the friends of the entrepreneurs. The reason I think we call them angels because their investment is not necessarily driven explicitly by making the money. They're investing in you because they like you, they believe in you, they know your potential, they want to see you succeed. They're your angels. And in recent years, it's become more like a profession because there is a needed amount of investment right now that could be done that doesn't require a huge amount of money. And those people fill that gap in the market. That's again because now, in the past 5 years or 10 years, we can start companies with a lot less money than we used to. 10 years ago, you want to start a software company, you need several $1 million to buy servers and build all kinds of things. Right now, you could rent these things for pennies or dollars, and you use them as you need to. So starting a company become a lot cheaper, so you could start a company with $50,000 or 100,000 euros or whatever. So angels fill that gap, and typically the terms of the angels don't take direct equity. So the structure of the agreement of how much the money would equate in the company is different than what the venture capitalists do. The venture capitalists come in and they value your company. They say your company is worth $4 million. And we want to invest $1 million and we want to take 20%. Because if you take the 4 million plus 1, that's 5. 1 million out of that is 20%. Yeah?
I believe at this point, venture capitalists are much happier to invest when you have some angel money as well. So
they're happier to invest when there are angels?
Yeah, angels, well, basically venture capitalists are quite risk averse. They know the 8 plus 1 plus 1 will basically 8 of investments will fail, one of them will just sail, one of them will fly. They are much happier to invest if angels had invested before. So even if you're doing well, they're just going to be much happier if you're number 2, not number 1. It's kind of a snowball effect.
I think if I understand you correctly, it's the angels have evolved also to become more like the diversified risk for the VCs. So they are spreading too much money initially in many companies.
What I meant is more that venture capitalists will be, they'll trust you more if you already have some angel funds.
Yeah, that's probably true because there is it's a pretty crazy concept, right? Like you want to build something and then you go to some other people and say, give me your money because I need to pay the rent and I want to take this adventure, I want to make this risk and I want to try to build something. So that notion of, essentially you've become a different kind of entrepreneur, a different level entrepreneur when someone else is investing their money in you. So the VCs are at least understand that you've taken someone's money and you've increased the value of your idea, you've developed the concept into something a little bigger. So you understand a little bit what's the concept of having an investor. But it's not necessarily the VCs prefer the angel. As a matter of fact, the VCs don't like the angel initially because sometimes the terms of the agreement that they go in, well, I don't want to get, it gets too complicated. It limits what the rules that they want to say. If someone else start writing the rules before they come in, they may have less flexibility. Sometimes there's too many angels, which also by law, you have to kind of get the consensus of these people, and they don't like that because they just want to make their own decision. So it's not always an advantage, but it's really interesting how all this evolving. This whole model, I mean, what I'm ignoring here is the crowdsourcing model also, the crowdfunding.
Where do you put accelerator
So accelerators are not financing source.
But some of them, they are.
Well, but their job is not necessarily to be viewed as a financing source. The accelerators, you need to approach an accelerator as an organization that you're joining to do several things. Often they maybe provide a space. They provide guidance and mentors and advice. And experts to help you build your product. And they also sometimes provide money to help you survive. So the concept of the accelerator providing money is typically very small amount of money. And the value of that money compared to the amount of equity that they take, the amount of ownership that they take in the company, is not directly translated as equal as a value of the company. Because they're assessing that they're adding so much more value by bringing mentors and advisors and experts to the game and guidance for you and maybe a space and all of that and exposure to investors. And all of these values, they say it's worth 10% or 5% of your company, but we will give you practically survival money for that.
But sometimes it substitutes friends, family, and fools.
It does. It does substitute some of that. In that stage, you're right, that's probably where it belongs. Yeah, so these are like the most generic topic, the most generic sources. I've laid them out just in that way to show that there are many options before the VCs. Yeah.
There's another point. All these models are probably made in the USA. There's one more source of potential funding in the EU, mainly. It's governmental sources. For example, you can get a grant that they will back 80% of your grant, for example, interest-free, or they will be supporting you as well for absolutely no equity. So this is actually an interesting source from a slightly different point of view.
Right. You're correct, and maybe I should modify the slides and add all these other potential possibilities. The point again that I want to illustrate is like push the venture capitalists as far out as possible. And that could be bootstrapping strategy, is you get free money, grant money, government money, research money, and all of whatever you can get to help you develop your product, to help develop the concept to more valuable, substantial position is better. So how much money do you raise, or when do you raise money?
When you're out of it.
When you're out of money, you raise money. That's one of the most difficult places to be when you need to.
Start making it on your own. Maybe it's a little amount, but
Why, if you're making money, why do you need to raise money?
when you need to grow, I think.
When you know what you will do with the money.
Yeah. So you raise money because you need to grow and you need to invest it in building the product and maybe buying equipment or buying resources or servers or maybe hiring other people. But you raise money when there is a different inflection point that you've defined. So you want to grow, but if you just say you want to grow randomly, how much money do you need to raise? You don't know. So raising the money, you need to say, I need to raise money to build a prototype, or I need to raise money to reach the first customer, or I need to raise money to hire 100 salespeople, or I need to raise money to expand globally, or I need to raise money to build something else. So all companies at all stages raise money. It's the basic job of the CEO is to raise money. And you raise money from investors and you raise money from customers, but raising money is going to give you more resources to grow and expand and improve the market penetration of your product and sell more of it or build more features and do different things. So there's always needs to be defined, when you want to raise money, think of you need to raise money to reach a stage of you need to know where is that money going to take you to, because that's going to help you understand how much money you need to raise. Raising money doesn't just go, I go to investors, I want to build this application or this product or this box or whatever it is, and how much money do you need? You need to know how to answer that question. So to answer that question, you need to know why you need to raise money and how much money you need to raise and what is. So that comes from what I call this inflection point that happens in the life of the company. The inflection point maybe is just getting to market. The inflection point maybe localizing your product in different languages or whatever it is. So the amount that you figure out how much you need to raise is once you establish this next milestone, let's call it, or inflection point, now you understand, now how long is it going to take me to reach that milestone? To build a prototype, I need to, it's going to take 3 months to work on this. And for 3 months, I need 2,000 euros a month. And then there's 3 of us, so this is like 6,000 euros a month. And that means for 3 months to build this, we need to raise 36,000. Take that number and multiply it, don't necessarily double it, because things never go as expected. So you build yourself more like a room for a cushion. So the general rule of thumb for raising money is defining your next milestone and maybe raising 1.5 times the amount of money that you need. So in here, it's the same thing when company raise their later stage money. They raise Series A because they need to expand globally and they need to scale. They figure out the cost to hire salespeople, to beef up more engineering teams, and to whatever all the other resources. They need bigger office space. You figure out the cost to get to that level and determine that this is roughly what is it going to cost to get us there, and determine how much money they raise. So it's a simple thing. We think about it like I want to build a product, I want to build a company, I need to raise money. But it's a place, hopefully, to help you kind of understand where to position this. Because there is a cost for this money that you're raising. When you raise this money, it's a risk situation, right? You have a product now that there's no customers. It's very risky. That means you may put it on the market. Maybe customers will never buy it. That means you're going to go nowhere. So if you want to raise money, the investors who believe that this has potentially the chance to go anywhere is taking a bigger risk. Therefore, they're going to require to take a bigger piece of your company for the amount of money that they want to give you. They're taking higher risk. They say, we don't know, this may fail. I want 40% of your company to give you 200,000. So, yeah?
And sometimes you have situations when users are not customers. Like in Twitter at the beginning, users, they were not customers.
Mm-hmm.
They were not paying money for them. So how to deal with this situation when you have users but you don't have customers, and still maybe the model is not clear how you earn money?
Yeah, it's a great point. So we're going to get to this in just a second. So this is the business model and how you think about that. So that's good that you bring this up. But in general, this is the thing that you assess how much money you need to raise, because you would need to raise only what needs to get you to that next level. Because if you're thinking you will take more money at this stage, it's much higher risk. You end up giving too much of your company. And then by the time you need to raise a couple of rounds, you don't own anything. All these investors own your companies, and you need more money to grow, and there's no more money to put in the company because you haven't expanded the value of the company. You haven't built up more proof that this is legitimate business. There are customers buying it. There's growth, and there's need for it. Yep. So back to your point, which is the next piece, is the business model. The business model is like, how does your company going to make money? And this is the biggest question investors ask here. And this is what's like really the thing that I believe the most misunderstood and mismanaged concept in the evolution of startup. And in Silicon Valley, people understood it differently than they understand it here. So when it comes to business model, I say forget about it. So at the early stage of your company, the last thing you want to worry about is how you're going to make money. Does that sound like as ironic, as crazy as you have heard.
No, it sounds for startups very sexy because nobody wants to think about how they will make money, just to make a product.
So what do you think about then? What would you think about if you're not thinking about making money?
Yeah, I think that most of the startups at the beginning, they think about how good their product is, and still they don't think how they will make money.
Yeah, so it's mostly the frame here. I'm saying, like, forget about the business model, but there's something that you need to be aware of. The most important thing that you need to be thinking about here is, in order for you to create a good product, you need to create value. So focus on creating value is the things that needs to be in your head more than anything. So the value is created by building a good product. The value is created by responding to the customer, understanding the problem as you're building it. And there may not be a business model clear. Google was like the number 10 search engine. Who needs another search engine? And Google says, we will do completely different. And when you come to a search engine, you're going to see just simple, clean box that you put your words in it, and we're going to give you answers or find you pages that has, you know, the information you're looking for. The search engine before that, Alta Vista and Yahoo and Excite and many, many others, they were making money by making you go to a page when you want to search for information. It was a total mess, full of ads, and it was very annoying, and it's just like you didn't get the right results. So Google said, we're going to do search, and we're going to do it this way. How are you going to make money? We don't know, but we will make the best search engine, and when everybody on the internet is using it, we'll figure out a way to make money. Twitter still doesn't have really a very good business model. There's no clearly defined business model for Twitter. But yet, Twitter is worth like $40 billion or more right now. Forget what's their market cap. But they're publicly traded. They're generating revenues, but they're also not necessarily making, I mean, the amount of money they raise is still significantly more than the amount of money that they're generating. So Google didn't have a business model, and what Google thought that they were going to do, they thought that they were going to build these enterprise search boxes. Do you guys remember that? Any of you? No? Google thought that they have this great search engine, a lot of people using it, and why not make a small version for enterprise so companies could put their data in it, and we index the data in the same algorithm, the same page rank methodologies, and companies will buy this Google enterprise search. That lasted maybe about 6 months or a year, and you guys didn't even know about it. Didn't come out of the valley beyond that. And it really didn't work well. But what they've discovered in that process, randomly, they did the AdSense campaign. The AdSense campaign, they said, we will do advertising on the right of the search results, and those advertising will be based on auction. So you, as an advertiser, you want to drive traffic to your website, you will buy these words. If people put these words in the search, there's a price. If many, many people want to buy this word, the highest bidder gets to drive, gets the top result. And AdSense now generating like 90% of the revenues for Google, which is like in billions of dollars in a month. And this is all these crazy ads that we see that most of us don't click on. But there are a lot of people who do, apparently. So the AdSense was a solution that was created later that made Google tons and tons of money. But when they started and they built, and for 3 years or more, they didn't have a business model. So focus on creating value and real value, and the only way you will really validate that you're creating value is when you have more and more customers, when you have people who are loving your product, they're telling their friends about it, they're using it, and they're depending on it, and you're not making money, that's okay. That's okay. There will be a time when you could figure that out. If you're creating real value, it will translate the money. It is, yes, it's natural thing, it will happen.
What about in cases where your end users are also your clients, so the people who will be your customers? So, for example, if you're selling software, you can't really start or giving away the software because increasing the price is always really hard. When you start selling people.
What's the question? I'm not sure.
So basically, what would you do in this case? You're selling software. You can't really concentrate on just building value because you really want to sell it for some price, right? Because if you start giving it away, nobody will want to buy it in the end. And in many cases for software, there are hardly any alternatives than just subscription or subscription price or just software sale.
So there's two things. I'll go back to your question earlier also is when the customer is not the user. So the case in Google, that's the case. Google's user is us, but Google's customer is not us. Google's customers are the companies. They're a B2B company. They get revenues from businesses who are advertising. That's their customer. If we define a customer as who's paying the money. So this was a revolutionary, different, unique things that's kind of become very common in the internet world, that you could create a product and you could give it away for users, and you could sell this information of what's the user searching for, or package the results for the other companies who will buy that product, and they will pay you for it. And when you build a product and you need to create value and you need to sell it and you're not sure what to do, there's an app for that. There is also a new model that was disruptive of this entire economic models as we understood them, and this was the freemium model. You give a baseline of your product for free, and if people want more, you can have certain features that if they want those features, then they will pay. And it's a lot more profitable to sell the freemium model. Worked also on a monthly subscription more often than not, but maybe you will get $2 or €2 a month. So 25 euros a year for an application that you were going to sell it off the shelf for 50 euros or something. But you're getting much, much larger distribution because no one, if you look at the number of people who are going to spend 50 euros to test an application and they may not like it, they're not going to do that. But they were willing to test an application when it's free. And if it's valuable for them, they will be willing to pay, especially in the model when they pay as they go. Also, you make the payment system simpler. And that turned out to be much larger and much more profitable than licensing software for the users. So think of all these possibilities where we're going into an era, we're going into a time right now where a lot of innovations are possible. The whole concept of open source, the whole concept of open source software also is like crazy. This is the stuff like I will make stuff and I will give it away for free. And there is the largest database that the entire internet is built on is a free software. MySQL software, the database that runs 90% probably of the data on the internet, is a free database. And that was like a crazy concept altogether, totally communist. I'll just give it away for free. How are you going to make money? Well, when everybody else is using it, some people may want support. We will charge them for support. And that's what they make some money. And then they sold MySQL to Sun Microsystem for $1 billion many years ago. And now Oracle bought Sun Microsystem, who was the competitor, the database maker. Oracle was competing with MySQL with very expensive database and very, losing market to them. Now they own both. What's the question?
Yeah, so I get what you're saying, like create the value first.
Yeah.
But going back to the slide,
what do you think are the signs for a startup that it's time to think about the money, that it's time to set the model for the business?
For a business model. It's a demand, a supply and demand. If there's a lot of people like asking for your product and you think that you should charge money, there are monetization and pricing experts and knowledge that you could start looking into. So you will say, well, I mean, maybe some people need to pay. You turn the switch to payment. It's not always smart to go from no payment to payment, but you make this freemium piece. So the time is when the customer is saying they cannot live with this and they're ready to pay. You will have to discover yourself, and you would experiment, and you'd say, no more free lunch. You want it, you gotta pay. And you will be prepared that percentage of them say, you know, give you the finger and whatever. And percentage of them gonna be saying, yes, we will be happy to pay. And some of them might say, but not worth it for me, so you may find some you know, smaller feature types of product, and you may offer them. So it's hard to kind of, you know, the short answer is you get money when the market is ready to pay for it. How do you know when the market is ready for it? Take your risk and ask. There is a time, there is a metric that, there's a guy called Sean Ellis who did a lot of research in pricing and marketing and things like that. And it's almost the same question is, how do you know if your product worth continue building or not? You have some users using it. You have people downloading it. And some people using it, but it's like not growing. So he devised a method saying that you announce to your customers, like you do a survey, you ask them if you end your product. If you close down shop today, what would they do? But basically, the thing that he came up with is if less than 40%, 40% was the magic number, if less than 40% of your current customers will not go like, no, that means you should close down. You need more than 40% of the customers to say, we want your product. So maybe it's a similar way to determine how much money you raise by figuring out, you know, if there is like a certain amount of percentage of people are willing to pay for it. Yep. So business model, there's business model tools. You guys have seen the business model canvas. Are you aware of this at all? Yeah. So, you know, business model is mostly managing the your cash flow. And there's also Alex Osterwalder, which is Swiss researcher who kind of put this methodologies, how you break down your business pieces and how they integrate together to help you create a flow to make this thing work. And the business model canvas have been used quite effectively as a very good tool to help people determine the money. And I believe it's probably the answer is like in here in this kind of research about when do you switch to pay or not. There's probably enough knowledge in here, which I don't know. But there is also another, I don't know if you guys are familiar with the business model generation. There's something called the value proposition canvas also. And that's a very interesting, something that I've learned about only about a year ago, where the business model generation is an old concept, and not too many people know about it. But this is worth, you know, these are the researcher on top, and it's a pretty interesting model that kind of shows you how you value the value proposition as well. And you know, that's in general, the business model piece evolved into more complex after you go to a place where there is a lot of, you have a lot of large user base, your product there's more entities involved in it, and it may be complicated that they're partners, and there's all kinds of things. And the money that's coming into the funnel of the business model, it still might be only investment money. It may be only VC money. but you still kind of have to understand it and drive it with a lot of these methodologies. So it's a big topic about the business model as the company grows. But as a startup and as you're launching product, I say forget about the business model. Don't worry about that too much. The business model, more often than not, stifles companies from being great. And it's very common that we see good companies coming out of Europe, and they're going like this. But you see them in Silicon Valley, they do this. Because you find a good revenue stream, and there's some people are willing to pay, and then your investors are happy with generating revenues. Oh, okay, we find all the people in this industry turn out to love our product, and they're willing to pay for it. Okay, great. Now go find everybody in this segment and sell them this. Instead, maybe let's wait and continue to discover maybe different types of vertical where the revenues may come from. That might be much bigger channel. So the revenues locks the founders into a narrow vision. Once you have paying customers, you become slave to serving these customers and building for what they want. You eliminate the possibility of exploring with other possibility, innovating creative ways to reach different kind of customers. Because once you're going to do that, you're going to piss off the paying customers. If you're going to experiment, you may have to do something for free for a different segment and design your product or similar solution for different types of population. And then these people, hey, wait a minute. Why the lawyers are not paying, but the bankers have to pay? It's the same database management, whatever it is. So don't go after the business model too quick, although it's quite seducing because it's where you start seeing the money. And it's what everybody in Europe, like, how are you going to make money? How do you start generating revenues? And now that's what's important to them. But you end up growing slowly and linearly instead of doing some like hockey stick growth that you would discover some random thing that could generate a lot more money. So any other questions before we start talking about the team?
Time when you should think about business model when you started, and if you still don't have a business model, you should start to worry.
Yeah, you always need to worry, but you need to worry more about, are you creating value? Are you building something people want? Are they coming back? Are they telling their friends? Are they getting value out of it? Are they telling you what else they want in it? Are they engaged? How long they're engaged? How you compare with others in that space? There are more things that would need to be looked at and measured and focused on. All those like, shit, we need more money to buy more servers because there's more tweets. People are tweeting like crazy. And what are you going to do? It's like, okay, but how are we going to make money? Who cares? You have like now, presidents freaking tweeting. Now it's become like a, it's going to be maybe the next telephone system. They're thinking maybe the revenues is going to come from sponsored tweets and advertising. I frankly don't know if that's going to be the model. I think there's probably a lot more different ideas. I mean, instead of like picking up the phone and calling someone, maybe now we have a choice what we pick up the phone and we transmit the message maybe to one person or to millions of people. And that is not what the phone did. Phone was like a communication method. So imagine the phone was like, you only use the phone if you want to say, hey, buy my chair. Like, what about I love you or something? So it's like the models and the possibility that it could be discovered out of creating value. Later, you find a business model is a lot better than to be considered than in the first, yeah.
Okay, let's put it another way. When it's time to think that maybe you should kill your project.
Yeah, when less than 40% of people say they don't care if your product does exist or not.
Yeah, you gave a great example. example about that 40%, and my question would be how to know and how to measure when you have to pivot your project, because most of the time you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
So what would be, is it all about gut feeling?
Yeah.
And, checking the traction, or what is it? When you know that you have to pivot.
If you're a true innovator and an entrepreneur and you're building something that you understand and you care about, gut feeling is your #1 metric. But consider also measurement and data. You know, look at, you know, do surveys, do experiments, do different options and show different possibilities. So those gonna confirm or deny your gut feel and point you in one direction or another. So you don't pivot for the sake of pivoting. You pivot for the sake of, like, you know what, it's just not working. People are not interested in very, very small people who are recognizing the value of my product. What is your product?
I'm making a platform for small business to advertise online, simply and fast.
Right, so you're building this tool so small business owners could log into it and create an ad and automatically advertise it.
Very small web page of their small business, and put themselves in the category and make offers and so on.
Right, and then there's a percentage of people who come and discover your tool, and there's smaller percentage of them who sign up, and there's smaller percentage of them who use it, and there's smaller percentage of them who use it every day or repeatedly, right? So you end up with maybe some users, but you're struggling, like, it's not growing. You know, do I pivot or do I not pivot? So you may, you know, experiment with the entire funnel and see if, like, you know, they're not signing up or they're not using it again. Maybe it's not easy enough to use. They're not signing up. Maybe the pricing model is not right. So you need to kind of try to tweak as much as possible, and then you still don't see enough traction. And you may have 1,000 customers, small businesses using it, but you're only generating, you know, 300 euros a month, and you're thinking, like, shit, I don't know if it's worth it. You know, I've been working on this for a year. That's the only thing we have. You ask these 1,000 customers, like, if we close this, do you care? And if less than 40% of people say they care, that means you should close it. If more than 40% of people say, yeah, don't close it, then figure out, okay, so why in the hell are you not using it more? So you go back and do more customer discovery. Engage the customer more and have that feedback loop, see what's going on, where else is, you know. This is the most thing I started with the customers. The more you communicate with the customers, the more interface that you have, the better chance that you would do. If you're building an enterprise software and you're building a complex software for customers, have one of your team maybe working at the customer side to understand their pain and understand the issues, and maybe you could, they didn't know that you could solve a problem that they have or they didn't understand themselves. So the more you're understanding the problem, the more you're living with the customers, the better solution you're going to create. And we don't have enough data, okay, look for more data. And then when you try all that and it's not working, yeah, you throw the towels. Like, this advertising thing is, I didn't get it right. Yeah.
Isn't the 40% rule a tool for showing you if you are performing well and, you know, knowing when to iterate, and not only closing your project? Because you can always reposition. Maybe, you know, you can get some insight from doing an additional research of your customers, and, you know, maybe then focus on the features which are more relevant to your users.
I mean, I would think that probably it's been used in many places for different kind of purposes. I mean, it's a generic, arbitrary, semi-arbitrary. There's some science maybe in here. But yeah, you could use the same theory to test other things, to test the feature or to test. But it's not always. I mean, data is important, and getting the research and understanding is important, but there's something that is more important, especially if you really, really give a shit about the problem that you're solving. If you love this space and you're like obsessed with, I want to create the best education, the best marketing software, advertising software, and I understand marketing, I know how people behave, and I know why they click, and this is the thing that I've studied and I love and I know, and the psychology and the numbers and the pricing and all these things, and how, you know, and you're thinking of it from a place of how do I create value for the customers? How do I do this? Not how do I be the richest man in town. It's how do I make this work for everybody? And you're so obsessed with it, go to your guts, and even if the data sometimes tell you not. That's where innovation happens. Innovation doesn't happen by design, it doesn't happen by science. Innovation is doing something different than what is. Management is when you drive everything based on data only. Zuckerberg experimented and did some crazy things with Beacon and Meacon before with advertising and against the board and against things, and the whole sharing, you know, everybody's saying, oh, it's too much private information, people don't want to share. He's like, screw you guys, you don't know. And yeah, and he makes it more possible for people to share, and people share and don't give a damn. Teenagers and young people don't care about this privacy thing that we care about. And he gets that in his guts. And the data, if you ask people, should I share my address and birthday and whatever? No way, people would abuse it. But then he went against the data. He was just like, no, I will show you. He will make the data.
Yeah, another question would be, when you have a project or a business you're working on, there's that kind of syndrome that attacks you when you have so much ideas coming into you, and there's oversaturation of different, let's say, market ideas that you want to fulfill, and how to fight it, or do you have to fight it?
Yeah, it's a good question. You do have to fight it, and it's a difficult thing. Focus is really important. Until you really nail a certain problem, you should like stick to things. Yeah, saying no is one of the key things in building a company. Knowing what not you should get into, even though you can do it. If you chase every possible opportunity that's going to come your way, you're going to lose focus, and someone's going to solve one of the problems better than you're solving the problem, you know, in 80% or 60% of the way. So stay focused on the main thing and define what is it that you want people's life to be different because of your product. Define the mission of what you're really trying to get to at the end of the day. And some of these questions, do they fall on that? You know, are they going to get me to have, you know, the vision that I have, that that's what I want to do? This is the change that I want to make and, you know, save people's time or something. But are you doing it, you know, maybe someone else is better doing it, you know, leave it for someone else to do. Yeah.
What do you think about the products which are nice to have, like Endomondo? Because, like, I think less than 40% of people would be sad if they would shut down because you have a Runtastic or other services which offer similar products.
Interesting, I didn't know neither, but so.
Okay, so Endomondo is
the photo stuff?
Endomondo is a tool which you bring when you are running, and like
right,
and
yeah.
then you are able to share it, and it shows how far you ran and what was the time. So it's like nice to have a product.
Yeah. But there are other products people use, and there are people who love this product, but it's not growing back fast enough. This is a decision you need to make. If you don't have investors in the company, and this is a lifestyle business, you want to build a tool for runners, and you're fine if it just generates enough revenue for you and your family, and that's all you care about. There's nothing wrong with that. You could be in consulting business, the same thing. Not all the world's going to be your customers if you're a consultant. But some people are willing to pay you money to do what you're good at. And there's fine, by all means, if this is what you're satisfied, you're creating your value, you're expressing your talent, you're bringing your best self out to life and making money out of it, do that. When you have investors, you have an obligation that you want to grow a market, that you have a bigger thing that you want to go after. And venture-funded companies, by definitions, once you get the venture capital, that's the biggest pressure that you can start getting, is where is this 100% growth that we need to see? On this level of growth, and you see many, many of those companies that they raise money and they're growing 10% a year. And if VCs no one's happy in this situation because there's not going to be enough value to sell the company or to someone to get their money back, to investment back. But those are like typical models of how startups and how companies are financed and what is your initial motivation to build the company. But it doesn't mean that you need to follow specifically one of them. But just be clear on what is each one of them implies and to you. Yeah?
I don't know, maybe I missed it, but how to attract angel to a project if you don't know how to earn money?
You attract the angel to your project by explaining the vision of how you see your potential company is going to create value. When Google went and raised money, the investor asked him, when Yahoo went to raise money, so how are you going to make money? Well, we don't know. We want to index the web. We will figure it out later.
In this case, I think it's easier to go to the angel investor than to venture capitalist, who is more like, I think, more like revenue oriented.
Both entities, when you're no clear of business model, need to believe that you have a vision of making a difference in terms of bringing new value to the marketplace that is going to have monetary value at some point.
You need to find the right angel who believes.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. You always need to find the right angel and the right investors. And those are the people that you're like marrying to. They're going to be with you for 4, 6, 8 years before you potentially exit or liquidate. And you're going to be, those are like your life partner in this situation. You need to make sure that you respect them, you like them, that you could work well together, that you agree to some extent. They see with you what's the possibility. They see your vision. Okay, so the team. How many founders should your company have? Another pop quiz. 1 founder. What do we say the best number?
3.
3.
2 is enough.
2.
As many as necessary, yes.
As many, as big as many.
As possible, as many as necessary.
As little as possible, as many as necessary.
I think there's a research done on this, and it's something like 5 is the most number, and more than 5 is actually too much.
Mm-hmm. We've done a research, as a matter of fact, in this about 3 years ago called the Startup Genome Project. I don't know if you've heard of that.
I think that's what
Right. And the ideal number of founders is 2 to 3 that most of you are right about. 2 to 3 is the ideal number of founders that you have, because when you have 4 or 5, it's become much more difficult to make decisions and to move things forward. There's more back to there's all these ideas and all these possibilities, and you're not executing because you're sitting in a meeting and discussing who's right and which way you should go. Yeah?
Regarding the equity shares, actually.
Yeah.
The voting shares. Do you think it's necessary to have equal shares initially for co-founders, or is it possible to have some sort of...
it depends on...
Yeah, some people say that you have to have equal, basically. That others will feel that this is age.
If you want to have walk-in-the-park friendly relationship.
Well, you can always share 51-49 for equity and then 50 in the reverse for revenue shares.
So there is this thing here about the voting shares and the ownership shares. There's a distinction that you guys mix these things. In the US, the business law is a little, the structure of the company is a little different. But the short answer is, no, it's not always optimum to have equal founders. 3 founders, third, not necessarily the optimum. 2 founders, 50-50, not necessarily the optimum. It may be, but it's definitely not a rule of thumb. And there are people who have more input in the company at different time of the company. There's someone who is developing the idea. There's someone who has the vision. There's someone who executing and building this stuff. And each one of the founders, their value is different during the life of the evolution of that business. And that needs to be determined. And then sometimes that's negotiable as well. I mean, that's adjustable later. There is a website called founder.com without E, founder.dr, I think .com. And it's like an equity calculator. It helps you kind of assess who does what and all of that, and then it says this is a reasonable split. It's a pretty good website, I think, to kind of help founders on that. Founder or founders.com. So the ideal size is 2 to 3 people. Typically, in technology company, you have the technical person, you have the business person, and you have the empathy person, I call it, the product person. The person who is translating the needs of the customers into how your product should look and feel and work. Thank you very much. This vodka? So the classic model is what they call it, the hacker, the hustler, and the hipster. That's Silicon Valley 3 founders. The hipster, or is the product designer or the user interface designer, someone who really has like the business and the psychology connection. The business person is someone who's focusing on fundraising and pitching and all of that. The technologist is going to build the product. This is oversimplifying, but that's an ideal mix. 2 to 3 founders with that kind of things. What are the essential qualities? Who are these 3 people that you need to bring together? Now, how many of you are founders here? Okay, let's see, about 50-60% of you. And what's the other of you here? Tennis players? So what is the essential, if you're looking to start a company, who do you bring in as a co-founder? There are like 3 main criteria. I believe most companies fail, most startups fail because of issues between co-founders.
Share the same vision, the same goal.
Great, yeah, that's one other thing. They need to share the same motivation values. And the most important piece is also that I call the level of trust and respect that needs to be there. You need to trust and respect your co-founder at 100%, not 90%. You trust that she's excellent engineer, and I trust that she knows everything in that. And you respect her knowledge, and you collaborate, of course, and you learn from each other. But it's not like, I want to found a company, but I think she's okay. She can get us here. We could figure it out later. Yeah, you are going to have a bomb exploding at some point, and that could blow up a lot of things and waste a lot of people's time. So trust and respect is really, really essential. You need to trust each other in that level of. There's no doubt that you can, I don't know, she said that she's going to do it, but she always says something and does something else. It doesn't work. So you have to have that level of trust really, really at the highest possible. If you have a doubt about that, you need to kind of flesh it out now as early as possible and try to work it out. The second piece is what you've mentioned, is having these common motivational values. In my opinion, there may be 3 kinds of motivations for people to start a company. There are these people who are crazy who want to change the world. They want to build a company that put a dent in the universe. Steve Jobs and Larry and Sergey and Facebook guys, Zuckerberg, they want to change the world. There's the other founders whose motivation is to build terrific, phenomenally great product. And a business that runs great with the best product possible. And it works perfectly. You have like 37 Signal, if you know that company, that basically where Ruby on Rails came out of. They build these collaboration tools and CRMs and other things. Craigslist, they just want to build great products. They don't want to change the world. They just want to do it, and they want to scale it and reach as many people as possible with their product. And there's the third motivation. Value is maybe to flip the company or to sell it, is to make money. So none of these is right or wrong. There's nothing wrong with building a company because you think it's a market opportunity in 2 years, that if you build this, we've seen a lot of that in the Groupon hype thing. If you build a little Groupon for your town, someone's going to buy it. Like, let's run fast and hard and build a Groupon. Fine, as long as all 2, 3 of you on board for that reason. The same thing for any other purpose. You need to flesh out and be clear why really you want to found this company with me. What's the vision? Go drink some beer and smoke some weed maybe or something. What is the thing that you want to achieve, right? Get to the truth of what is the motivation value for wanting to do this kind of thing. Because that is one of the things that you could say that, yeah, we want to change the world. Yeah, that sounds good. I want to change the world too. And then you raise the first $1 million, or you put something out in the market and you get a lot of buzz and a lot of recognition and you're feeling great. Now the other people start to, screw this changing the world thing. Let's just like sell it. There's some people, let's go and find someone who will buy it and get out of it. People, real motivation happens right when something big happened. Or there's investments that happens now. Wait a minute, but I need to earn more money. I'm like, wait, why do you need to earn more money? We still have a lot of work to do. We want to change the world, remember? Yeah.
So is it a good idea to put values on the agreement, on the documents?
Yeah, it doesn't. It's good value to put. It's good idea to spell out the value. Write them on a wall. Write them on a piece of paper. Share them. Make them visible. I believe you need to start. I mean, that's another talk altogether. You need to start with maybe like a bigger, higher purpose meaning for you to be dedicating your life to this, because it's going to require. It's going to suck your life for maybe 3-5 years. It's going to give everything in your. So might as well be doing something that, you're doing it for a really meaningful reason. Because it's going to be ups and downs and difficulties and challenge and surprises and bombs and crap happens and everything wrong will happen. So what's going to keep you in the game is being committed to something bigger than yourself and this just business. So not just values, is start with a higher purpose. Understand also what are the values that we want to define for our company. We're founding a company, it's the 3 of us. What are all 3 of us we believe in? If we were to create a great place to work, what do we want this place to be like? What do we value the most? We want fun. We want transparency, no politics bullshit. We want everything to be clear, and we want respect. Whatever it is, identify what are the things what are the values that you commonly share. It's defining maybe the top 3-4 things. Remind yourself that those are the things that we're committed to. They become very handy when you have conflict and when you have problems. It'll help you navigate. Like you go back, okay, but we're doing this for that, right? It'll bring people together. It's like, get off your ego and whatever. Like, let's remember, is this the position you're taking helping us get there or not? So the third piece is having these complementary skills. Complementary and personality skills. Not everybody needs to be good at everything. And not everybody needs to improve their weaknesses. Everybody needs to optimize their strength. Figure out what you're good at and just do that. The stuff that you're not good at, find someone else who's good at. And that's what you have a great team working together. So complementary skills is great. You know, there's people who just, you know, love to build product. They hate to talk to the investors and all of that. Yeah, well, then you're talking to the investors. You're doing all that. And that's what I'm building this. It's the simplest example. So the complementary skill is key. Quite often, people like similar to each other. They both were working in the same similar job at big companies. And they say, hey, we were both in marketing at this design agency, and then we decide we want to build this product to sell shoes or whatever. But we both, the only thing we were working like the same job. We have pretty much very, very similar skills. So now you need to dig deeper, like what each one of you is going to be more interested in doing than the others. Something about you mentioned about the ownership, 51% or not. So in these, defining the co-founder, there is a CEO. You need to determine who is the C-fucking-O. This is very important. No matter how we're friends, we're good, we both, but the CEO, there's time when the decision needs to be made, and you're in this agreement. And there's 4 people on a team, 3 people on a team, 20 people on a team, and there is no consensus of what is the direction. The CEO's job is to make a decision and move things forward. Otherwise, you're stuck. So CEO is, instead of the power of control, it's not really the power of control. It's just sometimes where someone who is, their role is to make the tough decision. They don't know as much as you don't know. We're not sure. We go this way or this way. Here's what happened here and blah, 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 and here's what happened here, blah, 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 and then we're like frozen. You need someone to say, okay, we're going here, and it's what's going to happen. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't mean that we blame this CEO. It's not an issue of, you told us it was your fault. So the agreement of the CEO is just to sometimes like give that direction to keep things moving. Okay, now we have to backtrack and figure out, okay, we've wasted money and time. Maybe we should have gone that way. Let's try that. So the CEO is the control more than the equity. It's not like I have more, I have 60% because I've started this company by myself and I was developing this company for a year, and then you came and joined me, and then 2 others came and joined me, and I agreed like each one of you will take 20% and I still keep 60. It doesn't mean that I'm making a decision. If I'm the technical guy, but I'm not the CEO, you're the CEO, you have 20%, maybe you're the one who's going to make a decision. So don't confuse these voting things with, especially at this stage, with the amount of equity and the ownership that you have.
Equity and voting rights.
Yeah, equity and voting rights is, involve other board members when you really when you have that kind of structure.
Let's vote on that.
Huh?
Let's vote on that.
Vote on that?
Yeah, basically you can have 60% of votes.
Yeah, but that's the, there's like, what's the value of founders' shares versus other people's shares. And so these are like the main things about the co-founders. So 2 to 3 co-founders, really high level of trust, respect, complementary skills, common motivational values.
Yeah, I have a question. In the beginning, when you have just an idea, it's quite hard to find the smartest guy which want to work with him for free. So let's say you start with what you have. Later on, when still you don't have money, but something is created, the smartest guy say, hi, I want to join you, but you already have the main team. So what to do then? Say no for the smart guys, expand the main team to, I don't know, 7 person, or say buy for someone else?
And I'm not sure I followed in detail. So you're saying that you want to hire a smart person?
Yeah, in the beginning, for example, I need a very good IT guy. I can go to him and say, I have an idea, let's work. Without money, just work. He will say, no, I don't have time. Later on, when something is created, he wants to join you, but you have an average IT guy. So you need, the best way is to expand the team to 7 persons, or to say no for the smart guy, or?
It's a different position. So when you go to this smart guy, IT guy that you want to hire in the initial phase, and this person says no because you can't pay me, right?
Yeah, that's at the beginning.
Right. They didn't join, but you went out and you found a mediocre person and you made it happen. And now this smart guy is saying, shit, you know, yeah, I want to join, right?
Yeah.
Great. So you would join, but your ownership is significantly less than what I've had proposed. I've moved with the idea. I've taken the risk. I've brought someone on. And you may keep the two people together. It's not necessarily one person's role, but now, you know, could they work together? Is it optimum? Maybe you need to get rid of the mediocre person, but this mediocre person already joined you. They've proven willingness to do on something for no money. There's value to that.
Yeah, of course, but if the average guy have more stocks than the smart guy, then the motivation of the smart guy would be very small.
So there's something here about if the average person has more ownership than the smart guy is not going to be happy with that. Yeah, I mean, these things could, you know, this is the thing here when you cannot be assessing this based on these variables. These tangible variables of equity and money are not the only things that's going to keep you together. Because what you're telling me is both of these guys going to bail if we don't raise money in time. I mean, this is not a sign of if someone is committed necessarily, because you cannot negotiate the end from now. I mean, it is like many more other pieces in here that you need to look into. Like, what is the reason? I mean, why do they want to join now? Why didn't they join before? What is the argument for that? I didn't believe in you then, but now I do? That doesn't sound right. What is changed? Oh, that was too risky, and now I'm comfortable with the risk? Well, there's price for that. Yeah, your equity is not going to be as high as someone who was willing to take the risk. So yes, like don't take these things to their elements, like flesh them out to really what's above and beyond that, because these are issues that will come up again. So from the founding team to building the core teams, and core teams is what we're talking about, like hiring the first 6 to 10 people in the company. This is the most important people that you can hire. This is when you maybe have raised some money, and now you're hiring people that you are paying salaries. Not necessarily, you know, market's fair, but you're able to hire a person. The other people are not hired, they're co-founders. They're coming together, they're not working for, not being paid. They're on board for the vision, for the mission. They know what are we going to do together. Complementary people, great, they're working. Now they've convinced investors to put money in the game, and now they say we need to hire more people. Okay, the first 6, 10 people that you hire are extremely important people in the company, because those could also make or break the company. So what I've wrote here is something called ergonomics in hiring. At this stage of the game, you want to customize, you want more generalists, and you want to customize the position around the person. Ergonomics is, you know, this ergonomically designed, it has this shape, it fits in my palm that way, instead of, you know, being edgy and my hand is fitting around it in an awkward way. So ergonomics is fitting the machine to the human, and I find ergonomics in hiring, that same philosophy that I wrote about, is designing a position around the human's skills, the human talent. The individual who is joining your company, you want to create a position around their strengths and weaknesses, and this is the kind of things that you want to work on. It's not like, oh, we need another IT person to just build the product. Well, this IT person also may do some finance at this stage. They do some creative, maybe blog posting, do some design stuff, or, you know, everybody is capable of doing something. Okay, so at this stage you need to find really, really smart people, passionate people who are committed to the vision, and you bring them on and they could contribute on different levels. This is not the time to hire specialists. So this is where generalist skills are more important than specialist skills. This is when the smart and passions are way more important than the skills. It's much more important to hire someone who's completely motivated, completely on board, completely see this, what you're trying to do is a great thing. They just so want to be part of it. They love this space. Yeah, they've never did any Ruby coding. They never did any JavaScript, but they could learn. There's this smart, what I call the clock speed. There are people who like brain, you could like see them in front of you like fast. They're thinking and talking and faster than those are the kind of people, because you, again, are solving a problem with a new approach here. You need creativity and you need different elements and different things to come. You don't need someone who's done this before exactly, and this is how it's going to be solved. Not yet. This is not the time for the experts. The early team needs to be better when you have these generalists that they're willing to stay up all night and work on weekends to figure something out. They're teaching themselves something. You got some terms from investors, none of you understand it, but someone who was the IT person who's really all about logic, figuring out and staying up all weekend and understanding, look, this is what this phrase in this contract says. And someone who took it up themselves to really understand legal stuff over the weekend so they can understand what's in this you're about to sign. So you want the people who bring more into the table than just what they've done before. So this is the key things that I highlight is most people at the startup stage, they think that they need the expert in, we need a great designer. No, you need a great designer for 5 minutes, for 5 days. You need a great designer. At this stage, you just need, there's not enough work for a great designer to design your product that you're just going to put the first version of. And if they're really terrific designers, those are who live to design, they're going to be bored. After you design your product, there's not much for them to do. What do you want them to go and consult out there? So might as well start with a consultant. Don't hire a full-time designer. So even if you think your product needs that. So it's like, this is a key piece where avoid these specialists. Unless there is like something, they're specialists, but they also know some other things. And they are going to be the terrific designer. And right now, they're willing to do some more things on the marketing and other things like that. So that flexibility is really, really key at this stage. The equity promote the ownership attitude. I mean, that's something that is extremely important. This is what made Silicon Valley what it is today. And this is something that is still not very well adopted in Lithuania and many other countries. And here's an example, because people may be saying, I just want to be paid. I don't care of equity thing. Just pay me. And because they haven't seen the example of an exit. They haven't seen the value of, if you have some stock, that means later this could translate into great reward. In Silicon Valley, all these technology companies, all these big names that you hear about, until today, when you go work for Google, Google give you stock option. They give you special price to buy their currently public stock at a special rate. But you buy this rate as you vest the ownership of stock. You guys know what vesting is? Yeah, so vesting is ownership over time. And the most common way to vest, and this is like, let's say this is 100% of your company, and these are, let's say, what investor get, and this is what these two founders have, and this is still basically owned by the two founders, but it will be given to other investors and other employees. But let's say here, if someone have 30%, this 30% doesn't become their own on day one. Vesting is, I will give you a third of the company, you will have 20% of the company, but there is a time that you need to work for this company for you to own this. That's what vesting is. Yeah?
Do you think the time is the best criteria here, or should any other criteria, say performance or
milestones?
Getting some, implementing some goals?
Yeah, I believe the time is the key piece. I know, and I've seen others and different models and different ideas. So I'll get to this just to explain this for the ones who are not aware of how this works. So there's something, this is day one, that when you start here, and this is like 4 years. 4 years later. Typically, the ownership happens over 4 years. You get 100% of your equity. So if you have, let's say, 10% of the company, let's say you hire new VP of engineering, something, and you give him 10%, what happens is, this is over a period of 4 years. Year one, they earn 2.5%. So they don't have the 10% because if they leave here, they can't go away with all the 10%. They only earn this. So the 10% is typically designed more often. That's the most common model. Sometimes people do 5 years, sometimes they do 3 years. But there is a time commitment that you need to show that you're putting the work in the company to earn that ownership. The biggest mistakes that people outside of this understanding make is they agree on these percentage and they don't do vesting. Vesting is what no VC would invest unless it is vesting for the employees and the founders. Because you agree on 10% and this person leaves after 1 year, you just lost 10% of the company and it went out and there's no way you can get any value back. That just doesn't work.
You can solve that with reverse vesting. When you invest, you agree that if the founder leaves, he sells very cheaply part of his shares.
Maybe, but instead of that, and that could become really contentious here because no, but I've created more value and I've built more milestones and I've arrived more and without me this wouldn't, I should have 5%. And in the agreement we say reverse vesting based on, it's much more complicated. The simplest model is time-based vesting. So what happened is this is 0 until you complete the first year. That's the common model in Silicon Valley. If you work for 11 months, and you leave the company, you go out with 0 equity. You need to work 1 year and 1 day, and then you earn 25%. And then every month after that, you're earning 136% of that amount. Year 2 here, you have 5%. So vesting is extremely important that you do structure that ownership of the company over time. So someone needs to put in the work over these uncertainties and difficulties that the company go through to prove that they earned that pieces of it. The models that some other people say, well, what if I work with you and I will build the first version of the product, and if I do that, I will take my 5% or 10% or 20%, whatever crazy numbers might be. And some people agree on that. I don't necessarily think that that's optimum. Sometimes like, okay, I'm going to work, if I'm the salesperson, if I bring revenues, if I bring €1 million, I earn more equity. There's nothing wrong with structuring some additional bonus in terms of ownership based on milestones, but I don't think you want the entire equity to be structured based on a black and white binary outcome. Because it doesn't mean you got the $1 million customers that you're going to get other customers. Maybe this salesperson told this customer's completely story, like you don't know it until this person's gone. And then you can't convince other customers that they could necessarily make that promise. So I think you want that commitment in time more than a milestone. You want everybody committing to the milestone. Of course, everybody who owns different pieces of the company, they are an owner who is responsible to deliver, to own, if it's the sales, if it's the product, if it's the fundraising, if it's whatever it is, everybody needs to kind of do their 100%. So vesting is important, but what gets us here is basically you want to give everybody equity, because what happens in Silicon Valley is the companies, the employee, like let's take Facebook for example. engineer hire number 100. The employee number 100 at Facebook, roughly, I'm just making this up, but just roughly what I think that might be, is someone who probably made a pretty decent salary and got maybe 0.1%. And that's that's a pretty, pretty reasonable amount. 0.1%, 0.1%. Like, that's very little equity, right? Like, hey, not even 1%. 0.1% of a company that's $100 billion. 100 billion. 1% is 1 billion. 1/10 of that is 100 million? I don't know, I lose it sometimes at these numbers. So it could be a huge amount of money. Employee number 1,000 may have 0.0001 or something, but still that might translate into 200,000 euros when a company exited. After 4 years of this person working their ass off, that's a nice windfall. They were being paid and all of that. That's a nice bonus that comes now. I could just say, I'm going to sell my shares, I'm going to leave, and now I have some money to start my own company. So equity promotes ownership attitude, and it also perpetuates the cycle of the startups and the innovations. And what happened in Silicon Valley, people leave Google and start their own company. They leave Facebook and start their own company. They leave Square because they see, like, shit, look at the founders is making the biggest money. They have the biggest amount of equity because the founder might end up with 5–10% of the company, and that might mean, billions of dollars or euros. And say, like, I joined earlier because I came in late, but I could have done this, and I'm going to do it by myself. So the equity is very important to perpetuate these other people who become entrepreneurs and who jump into this game themselves. And it's the attitude of equity promotes ownership. Everybody feels good when they're really getting documents, when they're getting a contract that they feel it's like everybody else in the company has, except for the amount. They understand the amount is not equal. We're not all equal. This is not Russia. So this is the core team. These are the people who typically become like the head of department. They're generalists, they're smart, and they're helping you grow, and they learn a lot about everything is happening. And their job is constantly replace themselves to find someone who will do what they were doing into a systematic way and stepping into, and then they become, the customer support place, the head of engineering, the head of sales, or head of marketing. So people grow out of their strength and the areas that they excel at, because they grow organically with the company. This is the best people to grow good, successful companies, is the company that grows people bottom up. And to grow people bottom up, the selection at the first 6 to 12 people is crucial, is very, very key. So beyond that is going to the scalable team. This is hiring people from 12 to 100. How do you scale this team? You always want to find the best people you can hire, and of course, that's like this funniest advice that they hear. Hire smart people. Really, good idea. Like, I was thinking, I want to hire stupid people. But what at this stage here is when you're looking for domain experts and specialized people. This is where you may need a full-time designer. There's a lot of work to be done, and designing a product, there's more things could be done in that design department, in the marketing, all of that. Now you need like the best designer possible. This is where you may need like a database expert or networking expert, whatever your product might be. This is where you feel like we're big data, we need someone who knows big data. This is the time that you really bring these experts on. And that's when you're like segmenting and building a system that's going to scale. And domain expert. This is when you want someone who has managed MySQL database for many years, because we need to make sure it's done right. Or someone who's really great Ruby developer, because we need to build the product faster, and we need someone who knows Ruby and how to build stuff with Ruby quick, or Python, or whatever it is. Where do you find these people? Where do you find the best people, specialists? Start with these personal referrals. This is usually the best source of finding people, is the people you may have worked with before, or people you've known from university, or people, someone says, yeah, I worked with her, she was really, really smart. You better hire Jessica. In America, your name would be. So it's, the personal referrals are best people to go after. Known quantity better than unknown quantity. And this is really what you optimize throughout the hiring process. Always, the referred people are people who are trusted, known, people have worked with them, and ask your professors, ask your other people, your neighbors, who do you know who might be good? This is much better source than just putting an ad on a paper, in a newspaper, or on the internet, and getting resumes and CVs, people to apply. So why should people join your company? You need to understand what motivates your good people. If you're hiring the best domain expert, the best Java developer, the best designer, the best financial analyst, the best data whatever, why this best of the best should join your company? It's not enough that you can offer them high salary or whatever. Someone else, another startup, will offer them also high salary. In my experience, the most motivating value for smart people is opportunity for growth and learning. The way you motivate really, really smart person is by truly offering an opportunity for them that they could potentially grow their career, their job, their skills, and they're going to learn. And this is when they're going to work with people who are potentially smarter than them. Hopefully they believe, and that's the case, is they're going to work with, like, this guy is like, knows data like crazy, and I learned so much working with him, and they're giving me the opportunity that I'm just going to explore and own this piece. I'm going to be in charge of the front end of the product, and I'm going to be finding the best tools, and I'm going to be responsible to take bigger decisions. So that's what motivates smart people. It's not money that will make the distinction for them to join you or not. Promote leadership. This is what I've mentioned before. Bottom-up growth is the best way to grow companies. I've worked with 46 companies. As of now, 26 of them have exited, another 12 or 10 or 12 doing very, very well. The majority of them have their core people who have evolved building the company from the inside out, instead of bringing managers later and executives and directors from the outside. It doesn't work as well. So promote that from bottom up. You can always teach management skills. You can always teach leadership skills. Promote the people who have the passion, the knowledge, they know the DNA of your company. They know what everything was and what it is, and they're still committed to the long vision. Invest in helping them become better managers if they don't have the management skills. Then to say, this is where you're at, and we need like an experienced director right now, and we're going to hire someone from the outside. That will piss off everybody in the team. So this is it. This is the startup anatomy. Any questions?
Probably one.
Yes.
I'll return to the slide about raising money, and you mentioned that you need to multiply the amount by 1.5 or 2. But doesn't it sound to the investor like you don't have, you can't say what
Yeah, and any investors who expects you to read the future in an accurate way, that you know what the hell you're going to do, is wrong investors. There's reality in here, and in reality, we don't know. And anytime you pretend that you tell the investor with full certainty that you know, you're full of shit. So don't even assume a position that you think that you could say something that this is what I need exactly because this is what I know it's going to get us. Bullshit. We don't look at Silicon Valley. There's no one looks at business plan, projection, and all of that crap. These beautiful hockey stick things. Oh, this is where we're at today, and look at this where we're going to be in 3 years. Projection. Oh, how beautiful! And the numbers with like comma and fraction sometimes. That's BS. So that's the realistic way, is understanding that there's so much unknown in here. This is your best guess. This is what you believe. But it's not a fact. So don't allow yourself to believe it's a fact. Don't think you can convince someone to be a fact. Don't think that someone asks you if it's a fact that you can say yes or no to. That makes sense? Yeah, that this is like, step back to reality, like, this is what I think. I don't know. What do you think? You know, put it back in their lap. Or you tell me, here's the data I have. Oh, you're not successful entrepreneurs because you don't know exactly how much money you need. Okay, maybe you're right. It's not the right investor for you. Because that investor is going to be like your biggest pain in the ass. Who's going to, oh, what happened to this later? You're going to be, you know, these are all signals to know how these people will behave in the long term. When you see this many times, you can like, you know, it's like fast forwarding a movie. You see it plain. So there's some things you always default to truth, to what you know, to honesty, best intentions, best efforts, and that's all you have. And you pray maybe, right? I don't know. Any other questions? No questions? Thank you for your time and your attention. Thanks.